Hey, I'm Hector, a 47-year-old Puerto Rican guy. My ex-wife, Debbie, I think the abbreviation is STBX, and I were married for 26 years. But we were together for a total of 30 years. We tied the knot during our senior year of high school because she got pregnant with our first child. Back then, I was fortunate enough to land a job at UPS right after graduation, but things were tough in the beginning. Her family, who are traditional Irish, didn't exactly warm up to me at first, but eventually I won them over, especially her father. I made it a point to provide for our family so she didn't have to work. By the time we turned 27, we already had 5 kids, 4 girls and a boy. I guess you could say I lucked out with having a boy first. Of course, we had our fair share of arguments over money, different parenting approaches, and me expressing my desire for more emotional closeness. I understood that with 5 children, things could be overwhelming, and I tried my best to lend a hand, but she was still exhausted. However, my ex-wife, Debbie, meant the world to me. She always took care of her body and stayed in shape. I try to do the same, but working as a delivery driver for so long has left me what they call skinny fat. My chest, arms, and legs have some muscle, but I also have a flabby belly. And let's not forget about my receding hairline that made me shave it all off. Still, Debbie was everything to me. There were moments when she would verbally attack me, and whenever I stood up for myself and fought back, she would turn into a crying bully, and it just wore me down. As the years passed, we ended up being the only married couple left in our circle of friends. All the others got divorced. Out of the 7 married couples we knew, 5 divorces were caused by the wives cheating, 1 was due to the husband's infidelity, and the last one happened because the wife friend-zoned her husband. I wasn't comfortable with my wife spending time with her newly single friends, but whenever I brought it up, it would lead to a huge argument about me being controlling, keeping her imprisoned, and being treated like some object. All of that really caught me off guard. The more she spent time with her friends, the more she grew resentful. The kids noticed it too. I remember my son and 2 of my daughters arguing with her when I got home. While I understood their frustration, I scolded them for yelling at their mother. When they left the room, I asked her about the issue, and she told me that they see her as a servant. I asked her where this was coming from, but she brushed it off, shut down, and walked away. The day of revelation is still so clear in my memory. Debbie was out with her friends, and I was in the kitchen cooking while the kids were watching Train to Busan. Suddenly, my 3 oldest children came into the kitchen with worried expressions. Before I could even ask what was wrong, my son told me that they suspected their mother of having an affair. At first, I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I yelled at them, assuring them that they were mistaken, but then I decided to use the Find My iPhone app and discovered that she was at a bar on the outskirts of town. Without hesitation, I jumped into my truck and headed there. When I got to the bar, it was packed, but I spotted her group of friends acting like drunken fools in a corner booth. As I approached them, their faces turned pale, and a sense of unease settled in my gut. Since I didn't see her inside, I stepped outside and walked around the parking lot. In the far corner, there was a car, and it seemed like the man in the driver's seat was asleep. A man I considered a friend. I approached the car to ask him if he had seen my wife, but as I got closer, it became evident that he was receiving BJ. The closer I got, the more I recognized the woman in the car. I was practically standing by the driver's side window, and none of them noticed me. I lost control of my temper. I shattered the window, pulled him out, and I wasn't exactly civil. Debbie was screaming apologies repeatedly. I was shouting at her while kicking him. The police arrived shortly after, and I was arrested for offense and battery. I spent about 10 days in the county jail. I had to go to the infirmary because I thought I was having a heart attack, but it turned out to be broken heart syndrome. The news of my actions spread rapidly, and eventually my father-in-law bailed me out. He was almost in tears when I walked through those gates. He sincerely apologized to me for his daughter's behavior. During the ride home, he informed me that he had spoken to my manager and union representative to discuss the situation so that I could still keep my job. He mentioned that the kids had been staying with him, and Debbie was waiting for me at home. He knew what was going to happen, which is why he brought the truck. Turns out, he was rigged. When we arrived at the house, Debbie ran up to me in tears, attempting to hug me, but I pushed her away so forcefully that she fell to the ground. She looked at me in shock. I told her to gather her stuff and get out of my house because I wanted a divorce. She tried to resist, but her father convinced her otherwise. About an hour after they left, my mother-in-law arrived with the kids, and I hugged them tightly. She also apologized for her daughter's behavior before leaving. Now, in my state, there's a mandatory requirement for couples counseling before granting a divorce. Honestly, I think it's complete nonsense. I don't understand why I have to go through counseling when she cheated. During the counseling sessions, I just sat there listening to her nonsense. It was nothing but blame shifting, blaming our young parenthood and her desire for a wild lifestyle. She got carried away with this so-called freedom, and her friends encouraged it. Eventually, she felt like she was missing something and started a fling. The counselor even tried a few times to make it my fault, telling me that I should have allowed her to explore and understand her perspective. I simply looked at the counselor and asked if she was smoking because that was the dumbest thing she could say. I asked Debbie how long she had been cheating on me with him, and she admitted it had been going on for 4 months. She insisted he was the only one and that it was a mistake we could move past because of our history together. Curiosity and anger drove me to ask more probing questions. Who initiated the closeness, her or him? How many times did she perform BJ on him? Did she swallow? Did they have unprotected closeness? Did he ejaculate inside her? Did they ever fall asleep together? Through her tearful stream of responses, she answered honestly, and I fell into a long silence. The counselor tried to talk to me twice during this, but I raised my finger to silence her. I thought about all the moments we shared before and during her affair. The laughter, the conversations, the closeness, and there was no hint of her being sad or angry. We were simply being ourselves. Finally, when I found my voice again, I brought up the times we were close during that period. I called her a 403, disregarding the counselor's attempt to correct me, and continued to hurl every insult in the book at her. Eventually, I told her she was tainted in my eyes. Once again, the counselor and Debbie tried to convince me that our history and relationship could overcome this mistake, but I didn't want to hear it anymore. It felt like they didn't care about my feelings in the matter. It was all about forgiving her and finding a way for me to move on and apologize to her for making her feel like a servant. So I made the decision to walk out. This contested divorce has been a tough and ongoing battle for the past 2 years. Debbie is still attempting to reconcile and get us back together, although I'm not sure why. Our conversations are strictly focused on the kids, and if she tries to talk about something else, I hang up on her. When it comes to family gatherings, I either avoid her or don't show up at all. Our oldest children have chosen not to communicate with her, and although I initially tried to encourage them to spend time with their mom, I now respect their decision. My in-laws visit my house regularly, and I know they've been trying to convince their daughter to finalize the divorce, but it hasn't been successful. My mother-in-law has been particularly harsh on her, calling her names and spreading gossip about her to their congregation. I had to ask her to stop because I didn't want our personal matters to become public knowledge in the whole town. During the first year, my son and daughter set up a Tinder account for me, which I initially thought was silly. After all, I'm a middle-aged man with 5 kids and a dad bod. However, I've been on more than a dozen highly successful dates through the app, which has really boosted my confidence. Recently, I met someone while doing community service for my court-related issue. Her name is Isabel, and she was the supervisor for our Habitat for Humanity project. Let me tell you, she's absolutely stunning. In fact, she even won first place in a Vanessa Marcia lookalike contest at a soap opera convention she attended with her daughter. That's how we started chatting. You see, my daughters are big fans of General Hospital, so I often sit down with them to watch. It's one of the few times I get to spend quality time with them. About 6 months ago, I introduced Isabel to my kids, and they instantly clicked with her. Things got a bit awkward when my son and her daughter started showing a liking for each other. However, Debbie, my ex-wife, just won't let go. She's been telling our youngest 2 children that we'll eventually get back together, and I had to put a stop to that. Her father is even trying to convince her to see a therapist. But honestly, I just want this whole divorce process to be over already. I don't look back with regret on the years I spent with Debbie. We have 5 amazing kids together, and I stepped up to build a life for our family. But my only regret is that she threw away our 26 years together for a fling. It's disappointing that she believed I would just let it slide and take her back without any consequences. Honestly, I can't stand her now. Whenever I bump into her old group of friends in town, I don't hesitate to call them out as 403 and homewreckers instead of using their names. The love and respect I once had for her vanished when I caught her in that car. She'll always be the mother of my children, and that's it. I just hope she can accept that reality. Update. I hope this is where I can provide updates. Sorry if it's not. And I apologize if I sound a bit scattered. I'm exhausted, sitting in the hospital, sipping on my 3rd can of Bang energy drink, waiting for my ex-wife to be transferred to a mental hospital. My daughters are back home. Isabel is sleeping beside me, and she hasn't left my side. My son has been with his mom since she left surgery. And his girlfriend, who happens to be Isabel's daughter, has been there too. It all started last weekend, and it's been a nightmare ever since. During the week before, my ex-wife's behavior had been getting increasingly strange. She had physical altercations with some of her old friends. One of them ended up with a broken nose, another had a busted lip, and the last one got shoved out of a Circle K convenience store. The police were called each time, but being in a small county, they simply took her back to her parents' house. I tried to convince my in-laws that she needed to be taken to the hospital for evaluation, and it turned into a heated argument, but in the end, I gave in. I should have fought harder. On Saturday, we all attended my in-laws' anniversary party, and Debbie seemed off to me. I pulled her aside, and it was the first time we had a real conversation. I asked her if she was okay, and even though she tried to fake a smile and say she was fine, I saw through it, and she ended up crying a bit. She expressed how sorry she was, and couldn't understand why she didn't stand up to her old friends or resist their influence. She admitted that she had destroyed our family, and seeing how happy I am with Isabel made her realize what she had lost. When she said that, a sense of fear or maybe anxiety overwhelmed me. I should have continued to ask if she was truly all right, but I was caught off guard when Debbie formally apologized to Isabel for her actions and asked her to make me happy because I deserve a good woman. During the party, Debbie approached each of our kids, and I could see them reconciling with her. I'm not sure what was said, but they hugged and kissed her. They were talking and laughing, even posing for a few pictures. Isabel and I were having a great time, and for once I entertained the idea of having civil conversations with Debbie. It was 3 a.m. when I received the call. My sister-in-law was screaming in panic. I could hear my mother-in-law crying, and then my brother-in-law tried to calmly inform me that Debbie had attempted to take her own life, and they were rushing her to the hospital. I hurriedly left the house in my pajamas. Isabel and my daughters didn't need to ask what happened. My side of the conversation painted a clear picture, and my daughters were deeply upset. Debbie had cut wrists and would have passed if her brother hadn't needed to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. When I arrived at the hospital, my in-laws were in a terrible state. She had lost a significant amount of blood and was undergoing surgery to repair her arteries. I should have called my kids, but my mind was preoccupied. Then I saw my son casually walking towards me, asking why I was at the hospital. Reality hit me hard, and I struggled to hold back tears as I explained what had happened. He immediately ran towards the operating room. I made the calls to the rest of my kids, but they were already aware. My youngest had informed them, and they were on their way to the hospital. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Both my father-in-law and I donated our blood, since there was a shortage of her blood type at the hospital. My son couldn't participate in the operation, but he observed the surgery. All of my daughters were emotionally distressed. My eldest daughter, in particular, kept dwelling on what could have been, what should have been, and what would have been. I urged her to focus on the present and not the past. My other 3 daughters were pacing anxiously. When my son emerged from the operating room, he reassured us that she would be okay. As I hugged him, he collapsed into my arms, crying. I wanted to cry too, but I knew I had to stay strong for them. Late on Sunday, my mother-in-law discovered the final letters. Each of the kids received one. and I had a thick envelope with signed divorce papers and an 8-page apology letter. The letter emphasized that she was never truly unhappy in our marriage. She admitted to succumbing to peer pressure and feeling brainwashed by her so-called friends who made her believe she was just a servant. She expressed deep remorse for how she treated me, the kids, and for having the affair. That's the gist of it, in my own words. When Debbie woke up, she initially refused to talk and would just gaze out of the window. It went on like that for 2 days, and around that time, I asked about sharing updates because I needed a distraction. Gradually, she started acknowledging everyone, but there was a distance in her demeanor. It was as if she was disappointed to still be alive. Although she became more conversational as the days passed, her condition didn't improve. Debbie requested to speak with Isabel alone. After their conversation, Isabel informed me that Debbie asked her if she loves me because she could see the love I have for her. Isabel confirmed that she does love me and revealed that I was the first man she had been with since her husband passed away 15 years ago in Eastern Country. She asked me if Debbie's observation was correct, if I loved her, and I acknowledged it. This made Debbie happy. Debbie will be in a mental hospital for observation. The doctor informed her parents that it could take a year, maybe even 2, before she can be released. Although she may no longer be my wife or the woman I devoted all my love to, she remains the mother of our children, and I'm committed to ensuring her recovery for the sake of our kids. Second story. So, me, 24M, and my girlfriend, 23F, have been together for 2 years. We actually met at a party thrown by a mutual friend, and we instantly hit it off. Life has been pretty good for us. We're financially stable and living in the apartment my father gave me as a graduation gift. It used to belong to my grandfather, and since we already had a house, it was just sitting empty, so my dad passed it on to me. I really love my girlfriend. She's incredibly important to me. Since I don't have many close friends to confide in, she's the one who's always there to support me emotionally. However, due to her work, she had to temporarily move to a different state for 2 months. We talked on the phone every day, and I even planned a surprise for her, a whole day date, to make her happy when she returned. But when I mentioned the surprise and how excited I was, her reaction wasn't what I expected. She declined and said she just wanted to be alone. Normally, she never turns down surprises or anything like that, but hey, I understand that she might be tired. So I suggested we could reschedule the date for another day. She stopped replying to me, and I found this behavior quite strange. It seemed like she was trying to distance herself from me. Then, after a month, she suddenly suggests planning a vacation together. I'll keep it brief, I agreed, and we made all the arrangements. We went to the destination she chose, and we had a good time. However, during the vacation, she went alone to her friend's house. I had no idea her friend lived there, and she refused to let me join her. After we returned from the trip, she went back to her distant behavior. Now, after 2 months since our vacation, I finally discovered the reason behind her actions. Here's how it unfolded. I was in the bedroom while my girlfriend was in the shower, and her phone beeped. I couldn't help but notice the text that broke my heart. It said something like, "Hey, beautiful, did he go to sleep?" I was shocked and confused, so I started reading their conversations. It turns out she had been cheating on me with a guy she met during her work trip. There was even a photo of them together at our vacation spot, and they were discussing their closeness and how they managed to keep it a secret from me. I'm done. I don't know what to do with my life anymore. The only person I trusted has betrayed me. It's the night I found out she's cheating, but I haven't confronted her about it. I don't know what I should say to her, or how to handle this situation. Should I talk to her and ask her to end things with the other guy and try to work things out? If not, then how should I move forward? Can you suggest some ways for me to cope with this pain and move on? Update. It's been around 6 days since I shared the story about how my girlfriend of 2 years cheated on me and manipulated me into going on a vacation where she could meet up with her affair partner. After posting the story, I couldn't handle the emotions, so I left home that night and told her I was going to my friend's house. I couldn't sleep all night and spent the time reading the comments. People were suggesting that I should leave her because she's using me, and some even mentioned seeking revenge. But I don't want revenge. Despite everything she did to me, I still love her. I'm not angry, just I don't even know how to explain it. So I went to my parents' house and talked to my mother. I know it might sound strange to talk to your mother about this, but I don't have anyone else to discuss it with. Usually, I would talk to my girlfriend about these things, but not this time. My mother was shocked and devastated when I told her what happened. She had thought this girl would be perfect for me and was looking forward to our future together. She assured me not to worry and said that everything would be fine. That night, after thinking it through, I made up my mind to leave her for good and treat myself to a nice vacation or something similar. So I returned to my house, but here's the unbelievable part. It didn't even take her a night to invite her partner over and cheat on me in my own home. Initially, I didn't have any intentions of seeking revenge, but witnessing her lying in bed with another man gave me a perfect idea. I discreetly took their photos while they were fast asleep, of course, making sure they were covered. I'm not the kind of person to invade someone's privacy in that way. Afterward, I left to give myself some time before confronting her. Later that day, I anonymously called that guy to meet at a cafe and also brought my girlfriend to the same cafe. You can only imagine the shock on her face. By the way, I want to mention that I took screenshots of their conversations. Now, it's time for step 2 of my plan. Step 2 involves gathering information about the guy's background. I know it may not be entirely right, but I have a friend I met online who's good with tech stuff. He managed to dig up all the details about the guy, and guess what I discovered? He has a wife and 2 kids. The story keeps getting crazier. I called his wife and explained everything, including my plan. She was saddened by the news, but was willing to confront him. Step 3 is in motion. I now have all the evidence to bring them both down. I anonymously sent the guy all the photos, and boy was he scared. Step 4 is all about breaking them up. I threatened to ruin his life if he didn't leave my girlfriend. I might come off as cruel, but he did much worse things to me. And guess what? He actually broke up with my girlfriend. I could hear her crying inside the bathroom, but she never shed a tear for me, huh? Finally, I shared the evidence in our friends and her family group chats. Final part. The next day, when she woke up, her bag was packed and I told her to get out of my house or I would call the police. She was shocked and asked why. So I showed her all the evidence and she begged me to let her explain. In a firm but polite tone, I told her to get out of my house. As she was leaving, I sent a text to the guy's wife, showing her the divorce papers. Meanwhile, my girlfriend's phone was bombarded with messages. Guess who they were from? I legally gave her notice as per tenant rights, but she left immediately after receiving those messages, so everything turned out fine. The court hearing will take some time, but we'll make the guy pay child support and compensate for the emotional damage. I'll also support the lady through this process. I don't feel good about ruining a couple's life, but I truly believe she didn't deserve that man. She's a wonderful person, and even if the guy broke up with my girlfriend because of me, he would have likely found someone else. I also feel remorseful about the things I did for revenge, and she has been receiving hate from her friends and family. It's a bit saddening, but this wouldn't have happened if she hadn't invited him over the night I left. You might not agree with me, but I did what I believed was right. I saved one person's life, and I'll do everything I can to help the lady and her young children. Anyone else in my position would have done something similar. I want to thank you for supporting me and encouraging me to leave this toxic relationship. It'll take time for me to move on, but I'll definitely get there. I'll keep you updated on the divorce proceedings and how the lady and I are doing in a week or 2.